Okay, so we're back with another day of programming here. Now, last video we worked on taking two of the not so useful tiles, but sort of kind of useful tiles and turning them to JSON. That would be the launcher parts, which are used for a standard launcher, so they kind of are useful, but you had the launcher pad, which was like, didn't really matter. They're both implemented. I've got them completely working now. The issues we were having with them, with the textures not working, was I did not define the textures. I realized somewhere in the middle of the video I said I was going to come up with some system to do this automatically, and I decided just to not do that. And I forgot I was not going to do that, and we ended up with kind of a buggiest mess that where it wasn't working. It turned out there was no bugs actually there. It's just you don't define textures, you don't get textures. On top of this, though, it took me 3 hours to realize I had made this mistake, and I recoded the render system for Volt's engine, which it needed to be done. So, I mean, I didn't waste any time, but it ended up with 3 hours of time I could have been used somewhere else. But it did result in our render system now being more modular, easier to work with, easier to read. The downside, though, is now a lot of the models need to be defined with a certain type. If you're running a block, you have to be a type block. You can override in each of the states. So, say for example, I wanted my block to be a model, I can go render type and then define it as a model, and it would render as a model. You can do that for items, tiles, blocks. There's each of a type. Right now, tile and block are pretty much identical. The only difference with tile is that you will get a tile entity special render with the block render. This is useful for a lot of the missile launchers that actually do render as normal blocks, but then render an actual missile. Um, Let me actually go find that code and show it off real quick before we get started into the day of working on more of this stuff. Because it's going to be more of less that same of that for the rest of the week. I may take a divergence and work on the Git client sometime this week because DMod actually wants that to be used relatively soon because he's getting tired of updating the Volts Engine versions by hand. So let's see. So I moved everything to a processor. We now have a model state processor, which contains all of our model loading code. We have a block state processor, which contains all of our block state loading code. And this all extends a subprocessor, which a subprocessor handles things like parents and texture ID. It also does the post handling now, which sets the parent object. So what this does, this is the parent ID, and this is the actual parent object thing. I may put these in the kind of stick them in the interface here because it's kind of becoming one of those things where almost everything is going to have a parent object. But I'll do that later. Right now we'll go to the actual render JSON processor, which is now much cleaner. It's that we're down to 150 lines. Actually, you can 149 if we get rid of that extra space. So it's really nice. Right now I'm just manually registering up here, but anybody can register a state processor to this. It's just added. It's nothing special. It just goes through the list and goes, can you handle, can you handle? And if something says it can handle it, then it handles it, which is down here. So first thing we go, we load up the object, we ensure it has basic data, we get the basic data. If it's a tile, we handle special tile stuff. Now this is still done here because the fact is I don't have any loaders for the rendered data itself. We've only handled the state processing stuff. And this is where we handle the state processing in words. I'm getting a little tongue twisted there. So we go through a loop of all the states, we load up the states, we get their IDs here, you get the data, stuff like that, basically. It'll then get the subtype, which is that render type I showed you earlier. This is like model, block, whatever. It overrides the global. So there is a global. The global would be set up right here. So it's overall render type. This will take priority if there's nothing there, but then the render type will take priority over that, although both are passed into the processor right here. So what happens when you get a processor, or you get a new state, it comes through, it'll loop through all the processor goes, okay, can you process? For those who are like, this might take more CPU time, it kind of does, but it always processes in constant time. This runs in the same amount of time every single time. So it's not a problem. It's not like we're going to get more time or less time, it works. So it goes can process, which is a simple Boolean check, takes nanoseconds to run. If it can process it, it then processes it, so you get your object out. If the object's not null, it adds it to a list of, so we can figure out what processor made it. We then do the common process stuff. So this is things like the parent object, the tile stuff. To be honest, this could be included up in here, but I decided to make them separated just to make my life a little easier. So if we do have a object, we break out of the loop, so most of the time this only run 1 or 2 times. And then if we don't have anything, so if we somehow for some reason don't end up with a render state, it will default to a text to render state. This is just to prevent null point exceptions and stuff like that. as well as I didn't really feel like making a processor for a texture state because this is going to turn into the item state eventually. So there will be a separate processor that then extends texture state that then handles layered items, so you can have like 15 textures all on one render. And then yeah, it adds it, and then when we get to the end, we loop through everything, and then this is the reason why we store the state processor, so we can get the state processor so we can do post handle call, which is setting up your parent objects and stuff like that. And then we clear out those state processing objects so that way it doesn't clog up memory. Because after all, we're storing this in, even though it's not a static object, the processor itself there's only one instance for the entire system. We don't remake the processor every time we go to use it. So that's it right there. That's the new system. It operates basically the same, except now with this loop here, we've got flexibility to add as many state processors as we want for rendering. So when we go to do entities, we can put entity rendering here, so we can do like your bone structures loading up and everything. We start doing complicated animations, we can start adding special render handlers for the complex animations. So you would have like, instead of having a model state, you'd have like advanced model state, which then would have a bone structure attached to it. And then entity model state would extend advanced model state to add not just the bone structure, but say multiple animations that go along with base entity animations and various other things, special lighting effects. Eventually we'll probably toss in particle effects into this. There will be a lot of things we'll end up doing with this system in order to support everything that VoltsEngine needs, and this will, if done correctly, prevent us from having to code every single thing manually, which will be really, really nice. Anyways, moving on, let's go ahead and launch the game so I can show what is working right now. And we'll play Russian roulette to see what we're going to convert today. The unfortunate thing, the tiles that are left are some of the more complicated tiles. So if we do we're going to probably avoid doing the remote detonation system because I have to do all those tiles in one go because they're all interlocked to each other. And while I'm going through there, I kind of need to start abstracting them at the same time because they're so heavily linked to each other that I need to fix that heavy linkage so that way somebody can come in with a different block and it'll connect just well. So if somebody decides to make a computer craft add-on or an open computer add-on, they can handle all of their silos that way. So they could take the silo connector, which is what we use to connect to the silo command center, and they don't have to have a command center, for example. They can build a block that then connects to the connectors that then just relays everything back to a computer craft terminal or open computer terminal, and then they handle everything that way. So they can use the open computer system or computer craft system to do their wireless internet, so they don't have to use the big antennas. Although the antennas will support open computers as well, so they'll act as long-range open computer relays. Because I believe right now both open computers and computer craft have a limited range on their wireless capability, which is pretty small when you think about it, because I think it defaults at 50 or something like that, unless you're at like the top of the world and it's like 100 or something. But 100 blocks isn't much. You can run 100 meters of cable and it'll work better than that radio system, because I believe the radio system is affected by weather for computer craft, so if it rains it actually drops down to like 75 blocks. I know like most servers I play on, I end up shooting that range up to like 500 because the whole point of having a wireless system is not to be less effective than wires, it's to be more effective than wires. And when you're having a system that is so hard to set up and manage, it's just like, you know what, just run redstone and chunk loaders all the way. But yeah, the radio system that I built up is designed to fix that because it works, and it's supposed to work in unloaded chunks too. Though I've never tested that. And why did I don't even know why I logged off there. So as you can see, everything's rendering again. Although I don't know if the last video I actually showed the problem I was having. When I was rewriting the render system, I broke it really, really bad, and everything stopped rendering, including the textures stopped working and everything. And I ended up having to fix a lot of it. It turned out the reason why the renders were failing is the parent object wasn't being set, and the reason why the textures were failing was the texture ID wasn't being loaded. That has been fixed. I fixed most of these, and then this one was just simple. I forgot to register the textures. So. And these work. I mean, they're in the exact same placement as previously, so the conversion to JSON didn't cause any world corruption or problems, and it worked out flawlessly. I mean, they look exactly like how we placed them. There's no difference. It shows how powerful that system is when I could take a block which was written in code and completely replace it with a JSON-driven system, which is nice because we're going to have to do a lot of extra work on these to get these to be usable in real world, because we're going to have to do connected textures, so I'm going to have to come up with a JSON system for that. We'll probably hold that off until after the 1.8 update, but something I might work on is auto rotation placement, so that way whatever corner you point out when you place the block, it will go ahead and place it for you. So what we'll have is we'll have an edge block, we'll have a corner block, and we'll have a default block. You'll use the default block to make the corner block, and you use 2 corner blocks to make the edge block or something. Or you'll take this and you'll apply like 2 yellow and black dye to make the corner block, and you'll just do 1 yellow dye and something to make this one. And then when you go to place it, it'll auto set the rotation for you, which we could do today, but I want to get ahead and start converting one of these tiles. Let's do the Warhead station because it's going to be one of the easiest ones to convert. Because then if we do this one's got multi-block code on it. And the other one, so the reality of it is we actually only have 7 tiles to convert because this one right here needs to go away, to be honest. This one is the manual crafting one, so it's basically this right here, except it's the manual one. So it's the one you have to manually stick parts in. It no longer works. It hasn't worked for a while. The plan for what to do with this is to use this model on this one right here, and then take this one and start using this for the rack display, which is what that originally was, and then I decided to use it as a crafting table, and I'm going to take it back to just a display table, so you can use it to display missiles and stuff. And we'll add a GUI on it so you can right-click and you can look at the missile and you can interact with it. So what we might end up doing is we might leave like this GUI on here, so but you won't be able to take anything out of the slot. It'll be display only. Or I don't know. It won't have a lot of these other options. You can't configure things. You wouldn't have to do stuff like that. But you wouldn't be able to use it for crafting. But you might be able to use it for switching out warheads. I don't know. We'll see how we go with this. I'm gonna go ahead and clean up this space real quick and get rid of a couple of the tiles. That way, yeah, let's get rid of like most of these. The reason I'm doing this real quick is when I want to go test one of these, I don't want to have to check render code on everything. Luckily, these don't use the node render system over here, so I'm just going to leave those alone so I don't have to rebuild them. But this is what we're going to work on, and nice little test space here too for it. The cool thing about this though is when we eventually get down the road, this is going to integrate with the crafting table from VoltCenter when it gets added. So what you'll be able to do is you'll be able to access the VoltCenter crafting table, then click I want to make a small missile, and you would never have to even open this entire GUI. But it would have to be required nearby to actually work on it. So this would be your Warhead station. And it's going to be fun to kind of convert. So step 1, we need to convert it to a node. So let's go ahead and close all of this. And we can close that because we're not working on any of the VoltCenter stuff because we don't have to really change it. So we want to make a new package here. And we'll call it, we'll just call it workshop because that's what we're working on. We're working on the workshop stuff. And we want a new text file, and this would be Warhead. Yeah, I'll just call it Warhead.json. Here we go. And let's go open this real quick, and I want to copy pretty much the top half of this. I need to check, when I made these, did I put the author tag at the top? Oh, I left the author tag out. The importance of the author tag, by the way, is it does actually do something when it comes to these. It will mark the mod who owns a lot of this stuff. The whole author thing is a little bit misleading, though, because it makes you think that whatever name is here is whoever made it, when that's actually not kind of how it works. That's how it's meant to be used for the external files. You're meant to stick your real name here, or not your real name, but your whatever display name you use. So if you're called like Cowfling or something, that is what you put up here, so people know who made the content. But when it comes to an actual mod, it's meant to be the mod name, because then in the mod itself, you put the whoever made the mod in there, and it would theoretically work. I have to work out the kinks. But this is actually used. This is actually would be put in place like, so you know how we get the mod here? If we didn't have this, it would use this right here. Although for the block, it actually needs this because it can't register without it, unfortunately. I haven't built up the system just right yet, so you can actually ignore a lot of this stuff. Eventually, it'll get to that point where then the author will be used everywhere. So if you are an actual mod, you have to actually use the mod ID, or it'll actually cause a lot of this stuff to fail to load properly. That'll be noted, of course, in the documentation, which I am sort of working on. There's some up there already in the Armory mod for the JSON documentation. It does need to be updated, but there'll be a lot more documentation on how the whole system works and how to use it. And of course, there'll be videos, because I want people to utilize this. Even though I know people like Lex are going to hate me for it, I'm making a system to make mods without modding, without actually having to know how to code. And I want that to be a thing. I want to open up the door to as many people as possible to make mods. Although Lex kind of hates those type of systems. At least that's what he's told me. To be honest, he might not actually hate him. He just may discourage him. There's a word for it, I guess. Something. He may not actually even hate the system. He just may hate the side effects. Yeah, let's close this. We need to open Warhead again. Okay, so we got this here. Now we need to go and find our Warhead station. Now right now our Warhead station is actually down in the crafting section. Or here it is. So we've got a client-side version, which is just render code. The cool thing is that we're going to replace all the render code into the JSON file. And then we've got the actual tile here, which is right now extending modular machine. It doesn't really need to do that because the only thing it actually uses from the modular machine is the inventory. Luckily, there's not a lot of really heavy code in here. A lot of this stuff is actually just operation code and inventory control code. Like, here's getting crafting output and input slots. I think it's part of, yeah, that's part of the auto crafting system, which we might have to reprogram an assembly line to work properly because this is not going to check onto the system prop. And we need to get rid of the recipe container. So let's go ahead and remove recipe container. So we want the recipe to, of course, be in the system here. Luckily for us, it's almost entirely OR dictionaried. Except for crafting parts. Though I think that's OR dictionaried. Yeah, it is OR named. Sweet. That's OR dictionaried. It's so nice to actually have like proper recipes. It's almost entirely OR dictionary driven. Because it saves you so much time when working with this stuff. Okay, so let's go ahead and get the recipe moved over. Actually, let's scroll to the top first, and I need to convert all of this stuff. So it's got 10 resistance. The localization name is Warhead Station. This is probably not the actual name though. Yeah, its render type is -1, opaque, cool. We're going to have to do this stuff. So this is just going to be the package this is in. And then it'll be the name of the tile. So it'll be tile wrapped Warhead Station, just to keep it short. And we can remove that. And we're going to put the @tile wrapped up here. It'll be class name equals that, so to get the class name right. And this is @inventory wrapped. Yeah, I think it's external inventory wrapped. So that'll give us our inventory code. We may have to do something here. The interesting thing is I'm kind of curious if I need to actually even extend modular machine at this point, because we don't need power, we don't need fluids. The Warhead Station is basically just a crafting table. It actually doesn't even do the auto crafting itself. It's actually the robotic arms do the auto crafting technically, is how it's supposed to work, but I'm not going to read into that too much. Because the reality of the table actually does the work and their arm pulls it out, but yeah. So this just needs to be tile node. We don't need the inventory part here. Actually, you know what? Tile modular machine. External. Yeah, external inventory. This needs to change to external inventory as well. Okay, we get rid of the new tile part. If you didn't just notice, there's like no errors in this entire class. This may be one of the easiest conversions we've done to date so far, because a lot of this stuff is just auto crafting handle, and then all the inventory code's handled by the super. If we actually go to the super, let's take a look at it. You know why the reason this didn't error? I typed in the wrong thing. Tile node, machine node is what we actually wanted. And there's all the errors I was waiting for. I spoke too soon when I made this. Okay. Delete that. Insert super. I think what was our super? We had to insert ID and then the mod. This would be Warhead Station, and then the mod would be ICBM.domain. Okay, so this will be long ticks. If I did this right too, this means we can put this in a cart. This is something we actually do need to work on here eventually to see if the cart system is going to work. I'll probably be one of the few mods that'll have a majority of its machines functional inside minecarts. Okay, we got a lot of set inventory calls. Do update user, GUI user, and then we got a lot of read write stuff. So this is load. Luckily that's not too bad. Huh? If I'm not mistaken, I think this is broken. Oh yeah, that should be key. That's a bug that's probably been there for who knows how long, and probably nobody noticed. That's how I know my mods are so underused sometimes, is that there's some pretty serious bugs that exist in them, and I don't get any reports on them, and if I don't get any reports, well, I never know the bug's there until I find it myself. And when I find it myself, I'm like, what? That bug has been there for who knows how long. Why does nobody notice that bug's been there? So this would be get host dot get packet for data. There we go. And we don't need to actually store the packet. We can just dump it straight into this. Okay, so we need the recipe, so let's get that moved over. I need to go find the recipe template. I don't got any of these templates memorized. I have no tools. I need to build a plugin for IntelliJ here, so that you can just go, okay, insert crafting recipe, and it would just do it for you. It would just give you the template flat out. Okay, and we are missing a end block, I believe, right here. Okay, that looks good. Okay, so we need to do this recipe. So we just copy the recipe format itself. You know what, I think I need to go check all the recipes, because I don't think I updated that part on a lot of the recipes. So there's a lot of these recipes that are probably wrong. And because I've been copying and pasting the same recipe over and over again, I may have just added like 15 recipes for like one object. Yeah, that's good. So this needs to be whatever that is. Which we got to go figure out. What is the register ID of this? It's not going to be in ICBM itself, it's going to be in the proxies. Okay, it's ICBM Warhead Station. That's a really long name. We'll rename this later. I don't feel like going through and renaming every single tile here, because a lot of these do need to be renamed properly. Actually, let's do this real quick. I need to go remove this. Okay, remove. And then client proxy should have one in it as well. And we'll have to do the creative tab really quick. So this is going to be that same format we've been using. Eventually I'm going to get the creative tab to JSON as well. It's not on the top of the priority list. What did we call this again? Close that. Okay, here we are. So creative tab. Here we go. So we can close that now. We don't need this. We don't need that tab. And we don't need that one. So I can, oh wait, I gotta finish converting this. Derp-a-derp. So grab all that up. Put this here. Do I remember enough regex to use it? I believe we can do that. Nope. Dot. Yes, it worked. Okay. Oh, okay, I can't do that with regex, I just realized this. There's a certain type of system I need to use in order to actually get that to work properly. So what we're going to do is we're just going to do that, replaced with that, replace all, and then we're going to do that, comma, replaced with this, and semicolon. Or I think it's just colon, actually. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Next line, all this stuff. Oh, wow. We sort of broke some stuff here. Let's redo that. Let's highlight this in selection. Okay, so we gotta apparently redo the whole thing again. So replace. Very important to do that in selection thing, and I neglected to do it. This should be that. Okay, replace. There we go. So we can go next line on this. Theoretically, I could actually program JSON to read these lines, but it won't do it by default. I'd have to get my own JSON loader, because JSON would just spit it out. Okay, so we need block Warhead. I am going to need to go to ICBM for that. Right there's block Warhead. Oh, it doesn't have a registered name. That's no boy, man. No good, no good, no good. I want to say it's Warhead. Because I think how it works is it pulls the name from the object when it goes to register. We can check this. Okay, if it's null, so if the name is null, creates our instance, it just calls new block. Actual name, okay, so null. If actual name equals null or is empty, spatial dot name. Okay, yeah, use a spatial name. So this is just called Warhead. That's gonna well, actually it won't conflict. Reason it won't conflict is because luckily there's actually a cool system for this. It literally goes ICBM then Warhead because, yeah, prefix with mods. This used to not always be the case. I actually always had conflicts with mods like IC2 because we would both name our stuff generator or macerator. And it's me thinking like these names were unique to each mod. They weren't back in like 1.2.5. Alright, back to converting this stuff. That was the tiles. I think it actually might have been the tiles that were actually not unique, and they're still not unique, unfortunately. Hopefully they fixed that in the newer versions, because I haven't been keeping up with everything. So the OR name of the DC motor, because that's what we're looking for, yeah. DC motor is motor DC. Yep. By the way, there's not like a lot of difference between the different motor types. They're just a little bit more expensive than each other. Realistically, there is a difference. Like a DC motor is going to run off a direct current, where an AC motor is going to run off AC current. So the default motor is an AC one, and then a stepper motor is a very unique DC motor that's designed to have high precision on its rotation. There's actually several videos on YouTube if people are interested in why there's a difference there, and they're constructed almost completely different from each other in order to work properly. Only reason I know all this is I was talking to my dad about building some CNC machines, and I was like, we need a DC motor, or we need a stepper motor for this in order for this to work properly. He's like, nah, we could just use normal motors with motor controllers. I'm like, we could, but the precision would not be the same. We would not get the same results. Unfortunately, that project went downhill though, because, wow. My dad, being how he is, he was only interested in the it for a few minutes because he was like, oh, it's like kind of like one of those passing fancies type things. It's like, oh, that's cool. Let's go do research into it. And then he lost interest, and I'm like, I don't have the capital to build this stuff myself, but I do have the knowledge to build all this stuff. And he also even has even more knowledge than me when it comes to the subject because he's got a degree in electromechanical engineering and has formal training on how to use these machines, and he's worked on these machines. He's actually taken them apart and rebuilt them in his experience. Alright. This will be handled for us. We don't need that. Why is there a super do update GUI? What? I feel like the Warhead station was never finished when I made it, and I released it anyways. I'm trying to figure out what actually happened. Anyways, is there an update GUI? So it's like super.update. No. We'll get to that in a bit then. So we'll get that. So we'll have the update packet though, so we can utilize it. Now we just got to do all the set inventory calls, which I can do pretty quickly. Just got to make sure I get one first. So we, this really just needs to be get inventory dot. Yeah, okay. So we're going to cut that part. Then we're going to hit replace. We're going to do this, copy that, and replace all. Anybody see this problem I see as well? Of where there's a large sum of these that are correct, and there's a large sum of them that are not. And you kind of just stare at it going, huh? Like, what happened there? Okay, so we're good there. What are we missing now? Okay, inventory cannot be inherited with different type arguments. External inventory and... oh, okay. Because we need to do this real quick on that. Cool, that's pretty much done. The only thing we got to do is make sure that the tile wrapper code runs, which it should already run out by default. We then got to convert all the GUI stuff. We then got to do all of this mess. So, hell, the read descriptum packet's not even done. It's right there, and it's like empty. This tile is definitely not finished, yet was released. And we got that same thing right there. What happened here that this looks the way it does? Whatever, this needs to go in the other tile though. You will see this time and time again where a developer will look at his code and just go, huh? Like, there's clearly something that went wrong in the process, but the only person you have to blame is yourself, so you just sit there all confused going, what happened? Okay, so we just need to do an else statement here, then copy this code into there, get rid of that. Then we just got to convert this stuff to the other system. There we go. This clearly is acting up and needs to be cut and actually moved down here on top of that. Okay, so it's in the right position. This is probably not working because for whatever reason, I just put the client version down here. I am not entirely sure why I did that. You know, actually, I know why I did that because the packet code was in the one version versus the other. Send packet to server. What are you? Your packet ID 2. You send the button click. This needs to be documented, which is the reason why I want to move it to the thing. But we can go tile.getHost.getPacket for data. That'll fix that. Yeah, containers has the same problem right now. So this will just be get inventory. I think I do it this way. Yeah, that'll work. Or that, yeah, I messed one spot up here. That worked. Ish. Sort of broke it, but it works. Okay, so now we're just down to the client having a whole bunch of junk it's not supposed to have. Okay, so we just got to convert the render code. Really easy how these go. So I just got to do, yeah, I mean, if I can keep this pace up of getting all this done, I should be done before school starts again, which is the 15th here, and have a 1.8 version of ICBM out. And then hopefully when the 1.8 version is done, then the 1.9 version is just a slight push forward. Because then at that point, all I got to do is wait on VoltEngine to update, which is, of course, I got to update myself, so it's not much of waiting, it's I got to do work for that. But then it updates, and then I go to the next version, and so on, which is absolutely astonishing when I think about it. Is that I've coming really close to building a system that is Minecraft version proof, and I'd be so happy about having that out set up. Anyways, I got to go fix all these recipes still. Now before we continue into the stuff, I'm going to go through and check all these recipes because Okay, so we have no recipes in here. We probably do have a recipe here. Yeah, see, it's still set small silo. That would have been tragic because you would have launched Minecraft and not been able to craft anything. Cool. This has no crafting recipe. Okay, these crafting recipes look good. I don't think this has a crafting recipe either. We'll have to come up with one for it here later. I'll take suggestions in the comments if anybody wants to leave one. Okay, the mag is actually empty, so we're good. The only thing I could think of is like some of the armory mods might have incorrect recipes. Okay, so close all of this junk. I'll leave that open, but let's toss it over here. Okay, so we need to go copy some render code so I don't have to type it all in by hand. So we'll go with the small silo. And I think I only need the top part of this. No, I actually need quite a bit of this. What are we working on? We're working on the Warhead station. I don't think the Warhead station is rotatable, but let's make it rotatable. Yeah, it's not. Wait, let me look at it again. It's rotated by default, but it's not rotated. Okay, so we got to get all of our tiles set up correctly. First things first, you got to copy this down to here. Our ID needs to be this, I believe. I'm going to move this down below the render code. My personal preference is that recipes are always at the bottom of a class. Okay, so content ID needs to match, so we just have to copy this again. Tile's good, that's going to match that. Now we just got to get all our models and stuff set up. We're going to render all the parts for the item, so right now there's no difference. I'm going to trust that the scale on this is correct. I think the offset needs to be changed though. This part is definitely probably going to need to be changed. Let's take a look at our current render code. Yeah, according to this, it's perfectly centered, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the offset here. The rotation will need to be changed. And then let's go ahead and add our rotation listener so you can rotate the table. Although it doesn't really matter to rotate the table, it's kind of cool to have a rotation for a table. Yeah, so we just need to copy this part. So come over here, just put it anywhere inside the block class, doesn't matter really where it's at. And then a comma, there we go. Render bounds are still not implemented, although our render bounds are actually set up so to be the same size of a block, so we're good there. We just now need to get some models. So the models are going to be defined at the bottom of the render here. So there's our texture and there's our model. So we need to come over here and implement these. Then our texture names are, unfortunately, these are shared assets. I didn't think about that. That means I actually need to define, these actually have to be defined in VoltsEngine. Because VoltsEngine is the one that actually owns this content. Cool thing is, that'll be one of the first few pieces of content that we actually have in here. So we'll make a package or directory called assets. And we're going to make a text file for textures. So textures.json. We'll paste this in here, and then we'll cut the back half off that. Of course, for those who know paying attention actually to this, I'm going to have to change all that. So, but we'll have models here as well. So let's get the stuff pasted in before we actually get back to typing stuff in. So these are shared assets, which means I need to get the assets for them. So we got tilttable.object. So we'll do the model first. domain is Volts Engine. Okay, I'm over here, put that there. And we're just going to go with we'll do the full name. So we'll do Volts Engine, and this will be tool table. So we got that, so that's our model. I'm going to copy the key and the domain out of this, and I'm just going to come over here and I'm going to paste them right in there. And then we just need to get the texture. So the texture would be tool table apparently. And let me check to see, is that just going to load? Yeah, it'll load it from the model path. Path plus model. Texture stop. Okay, so it's going to default to the model path, which is good for us because that means I don't have to do any extra work. Because if you define your type of texture as a model, it's going to load from that model path. So the only thing we need to do is put the tool table texture there. And all textures have to be PNGs, so you can't change that. And we can use the same exact key because the keys are unique to only the type, they're not global unique. So they have to be unique within texture. So texture are unique, models are unique. If we had particle effects, it'd be unique. If we had sound files, it'd be unique. Actually, we do have sound files, but I'm just trying to make a point on that one. So then we want to go up here and pop in our IDs. Here we go. So we got our base model. Now, of course, when we go to actually do the final version of this, like I've noted in my thing here, is I do need to render the warhead and explosive still. This will come later. I'll have to add, I don't know what special handling to the render to fix that. Yeah, I have no clue how we're going to make that work. I want to make it work, though, because it'd be really cool if you stick a warhead into the warhead crafting table, and you see the warhead pop up, and you'll see the explosives pop up next to it, and the trigger, and then when it all gets assembled together, maybe I'll even program the robotic arms to pick the items up, which would just be amazing. I want to get to that point where you can see everything being crafted and see it like it would be real world. You'd walk into a factory, and you'd see everything you would see in a real factory is the plan. Anyways, we don't need this class anymore, so we can delete it. Goodbye. And let's hit build so we can check to make sure we don't have any errors. Okay. Looks like we're good. So now fingers crossed that everything converts correctly. Let's take a really quick one over on everything. The renders are probably going to need to be adjusted, especially the rotation stuff. I have no way to even test to make sure the rotation is correct, but we're going to test it. Because the thing is, the model we are using is not exactly designed for rotation. It would work. Of course, it actually will rotate properly, because it should be centered if Morton did his job right, which I believe he did because he's gotten pretty good at what he's been doing lately. But the problem is it's hard to kind of tell if the stuff's ready to take. The only indication of rotation right now is the tools on the top of the table. But because people place tools in all kinds of manners on a work table, it may not instinctively, subconsciously register as being rotated. Somebody goes, oh, somebody just placed their hammer down at a 90-degree angle rather than at a 0 degree, which 0 degree would be perpendicular to yourself, where the hammerhead would fit on the opposite side of the handle from you, where the handle would be pointing towards you. Then 90 degree would be, of course, the handle pointing to the right. And then negative 90 would point to the left. And I just realized when I did this video, I have no beverage on my desk. Good thing is this video is almost done, so as soon as we're done with this, I can go get a beverage. Actually, you know what? I found a beverage. I forgot I have a 2-liter of unopened soda next to my desk. I really shouldn't drink these, but I'm kind of drinking them for the bottles at this point. I'm going to be making a ventilation system out of them. My original plan was to use pop cans, but after trying to cut a couple of them apart, I realized I needed to make a machine to do that, and unfortunately I don't have parts for to make machines. Or at least the style of machine I want to do, because I need to do a water-cooled or something machine to prevent the bit from being destroyed, and I need to make sure I'm building something that's got a nice disc on it, so that way it can cut the cans without causing shrapnel. Cool. We're just offset on the render. Can I still open it? None of the tabs work. None of the packing handling's working. That's not bad. There's update, which tells me that's at least working. Just the side tabs are not there. If I put something in here, I cannot stick something in there, so it's still registering as its slot types. me go ahead and look at the things. I think it's just a simple matter of maybe recentering the base model. Bit strange though, because the base model should auto center. Let me pick this up real quick. Oh, that's cool. Inventory's not, well, inventory's a little bad. Okay, so let's see if we get any kind of rotation indicators. Nope. Okay, break all these again. I'm starting to question if this is centered or not. Okay, we're gonna test this. I need to know if that model is actually centered. So it'd be source, main, resources, assets, volts engine, models. Just take a look at it real quickly in here. Yeah, I don't think it's centered. We need to open this up in Blender though. If it's not centered, I luckily can fix it in Blender, but I might have more and just redo it here later. Delete. And we'll do file, import, waveform object. Fortunately, I'm going to have to just copy the path here. I don't like Blender's import system. Oh, it's not centered. Oh no, that's crap. It's got too many objects for me to center to. Because I would have to hierarchy all the objects to fix it. Yeah, we'll just do this by hand. I'm not going to go yell at Morton for this one, because I think he already knows that it's messed up. To be honest, he probably has already remade it. Okay. So let's check the dropped item too while I'm at it. I can't see the shadow. Time set day. Still no shadow. It's weird. Do I have shadows turned off in the settings? Okay, there we go. There's a shadow. I didn't know that was part of the fancy settings because that doesn't take anything to render that. Okay, so that's even off as well. So if we remove the 0.5 off this, it should fix that. But for this, we need to add negative 0.5 to offset the original rotation. And then each one of these, I'm going to have to do a separate offset correction for the rotation in order to fix it. Although we're not getting a rotation effect off this. Oh, I know we're not getting rotation off this. We'll fix that in a second. I forgot, in order to have rotation, you have to actually have rotation. Rotation. Why is that part of the tile axis system? That's in the wrong package. Oh well. Fix it later. I'll fix it before I do the major release, so that way it's not too big of a deal. So this one we need to cache it. Actually, we're just going to copy this from the small silo, so I don't have to recode it by hand. So it's going to be launcher, silo, small. Okay, here we want to be. What? God damn it, IntelliJ. How does that even work? It's like if I switch back, so I can't get that to do what it does half the time, but it'll just randomly glitch on me, and I can't tell if it's a bug or intended feature, and I suspect it's an intended feature. Alright, do that real quick. I'm gonna redo this name here real quick too. So this will be we're gonna change this to Worktable.Warhead. Okay, that's just the internal unique ID system. That's actually not even the registered ID. I don't know what we're going to use this for. Probably the cart system. Right now we're just kind of keeping track of it in case we need an ID for it, rather than we actually need an ID. Let me go to the GUI real quick and let's see what's wrong with this. Okay, so these are the tab switch buttons. So that's the reason why that actually is not working. None of the stuff is documented properly. I'm going to say this is a crafting button. Craft. Menu tabs. Explosives increase. We're going to probably recode this tile here later. Yeah, here's our settings right here. Send GUI update packet, which just sends everything to the server. So this means, let's just do another thing here. So public void switch tab int tab. That way I can then take this part and then we can just call it switch tab. So we go tile.switch tab and it'd be button ID -1, I think it was. We put this here and we want to just put the tab number, and we get host, and I believe we can just do send packet here. There we go. Now it just comes down to why this isn't reading properly. Because right here is our button ID too. So this would be tab switch call, auto craft call. Bit weird when you think about it. It's probably this right here which is not working properly. That's what I think is going on, but I'm not quite sure. So we'll go ahead and we'll handle this, and I mean it should call this system because this just is going to pass in the ID, which then will select the tab. Go ahead and we'll check that out. Our rendering might be fixed. With it not being centered that way is going to be a little weird to try to rotate it and stuff. It's just going to go all over the place. Although that, once again, I don't think the Warhead station was ever meant to be, or the crafting table, which is what we're using for the Warhead station, was ever meant to be rotated. Now, while we're waiting for this to load, I'm going to go dig through the request package. And I want to see what we got for models here. Let's try Basic Industries. Why did that end up in Basic Industries? That's the ICBM consoles and stuff. Because this is where I was asking Morton, and I actually asked all three of my modelers to try to redo the console we were using. I think Grogger made the original version of this, then Morton redid it. Because I think this is one we ended up with, which is this one. Actually, you know what? I just clicked that and it's not going to open. And I don't think there's a way to exit that. Because it'll crash here in like 2 seconds. Oh no, it download now. I'm game for that. Get an updated version. I've been trying to download the updated version for quite a while. Let's see, so that'd be what, 2017, and download. They don't even offer, hey, look at this, they don't offer a 32-bit installer anymore. I'm going to say that's because they're probably both including the same package, or they just stopped supporting 32-bit machines. So here's the console Grogger made. Let's go ahead and open this one up. Yeah, so here's the original one. It actually slightly looks better than the one I think we have in game. I think the one in game is mostly texture based now. But he made that, and I was like, ah, that's pretty good. And then of course Morton redid it, and then Grogger got upset because it got rehandled. We got a lot of stuff in here. So there's a lot of machines for basic industries. Most of them are not going to get used. Got some pipes in here. I'm trying to look for the volts engine package. I can't seem to find it. That's a folder for when we were going to make drones. Maybe it's a user folder. There's a forge, which is going to be part of the armory mod. There's another console here. How do we... Medium icons. That's basically the same stuff we were just looking at. Yeah, pretty much. I don't know why it's in Morton's folder. Okay, here's some guns he was working on, never finished. There's all the missiles. There's a couple turrets. There's Dragon's missile. I don't know why it's in his folder. It's weird. I can't seem to find... Because there should be... The table model should be in here somewhere. Maybe it is in the ICBM folder. Yeah, right there's a table model, I think. Yeah. So he's got the files. Okay. I have to install SketchUp here, apparently. So I asked him to do some modifications to the table a while back, and I think he fixed the centering for it. Okay, that's the top of the table. And no, it's not centered. Okay. I can clearly see that he's got an extra file here, but can I open this? Oh yeah, I can. Okay, so there's the base one, there's one of the tool. He said he had one that had like drawers in it and stuff, but I don't see it in here. Hopefully he finishes that, because I would love to start implementing that, because the one we want to use in the Volt engine is one I want to have drawers in there where you can see inside the drawers all your tools, and then you'll have a drawer below that where you see all your parts, and then you'll see your active project on the top of the table. Okay, so that did not work. They're all in the same spot right now. And, okay. So we need to remove the minus 0.5 off that. I wasn't thinking when I did that. We don't need to modify the Y. We do need to modify this. I think if we just put that in it, it would work. The problem is we may have to rotate each individual sub one. I got an access denied on rebuilding. That's cool. Okay. Let's see if we can get the GUIs to work. Okay, so we're getting the packet. Okay, I don't need to know how you read in it. Oh, that's kind of cool to see that. Okay, we need to be an instance of iTile. Okay, I see what's wrong. We're calling a prefab here with that extra data, and that's not what we actually wanted to do. I mean, it would work, because it would call all the stuff we need to call, but our hierarchy's messed up, so let's go ahead and hit close on here. And this is actually, the whole system would not work. So we want requested ID is actually what we want, but we're not using requested ID. So how we gotta actually do this is player.open ICBM.instance, and then what else does it want? It wants the mod, the ID, the world. Okay. So it wants like an int GUI. We're going to do this as a variable real quick just so I don't have to understand what that buff read is. It's defined as GUI ID. World and XI, YI, ZI. There we go. That'll fix the the switch transition of it. Then I need to do one more thing because I don't know why it hasn't been done yet before, but this needs to... It is an iTile. That doesn't make any sense. Maybe it's our wrapper isn't an iTile. That actually might be the case. Because iTile is just, it's meant to supply some basic data here. Change that real quick because technically the node is a tile. And then we're going to go to the core real quick. And I said we weren't going to really mess with the core, but apparently that's what we're going to do right now. And we just got to fix like one thing. So this will be logic, wrapper, and then we'll implement iTile node. Or no, iTile. Implement methods. Get content type. This will be get tile node, get content type. So we're just wrapping this real quick. And then we need to move these up to where the rest of the wrapper stuff is, which is basically right here. Cool. Oh, Taz, no. Go lay down. My dog probably wants to play again here. Oh, come on. Alright, so we're going to make this quick here so I can go play around with my little dog here. So, hopefully that'll fix our rendering. I think that the rendering is going to come down to I'm going to have to do individualized, but if we fix the GUI, I'm going to call that end of the video because the rendering is just going to be me toying around with the rendering. But that's another tile converted. After this, I think the next video we're going to do the missile workstation and get it converted and tested. And then I'm going to save all the remote detonation stuff for, let's say, maybe Friday. Because it'll take me probably Friday and Saturday to finish it all up because there's 4 tiles there. The antenna will probably go quickly. It's the command controller and connector and display are the ones I'm worried about. Because those are 3 really complicated tiles that are interlocked with each other. Might make a metadata derivatives of each other. I actually just thought about that. Would be a horrible idea. Actually, no, that would be a horrible idea because I would just overly complicate the JSON file. At least one thing we know with the JSON data is that Minecraft doesn't notice the block is missing. So we know we did that part right. It's just that rendering is a little weird because the model's not quite right. One thing when you're making models, make sure you put the center point at the very base of that tile if you're going to be rotating in 4 directions. If you're going to be rotating in 6 directions, you want it to be in the very center of that tile. Anything that's going to be rotating in basically 360 needs to be in the center of the object because that's, unless you want to write really complicated render code, that's the easiest way to do it. Now, if you write complicated render code, then you can do whatever you want. I actually used to have code for this, and what you do is you use like sine, cosine, stuff like that to figure out your new position after rotating in order to get stuff right. So yeah, seeing we're having that issue where we're off by a block. And all of these are pretty much off by the same amount. They're off by 1 block. It's hard to tell which is which though. So let's go ahead and break this guy. And we're going to place him right back down. We are facing north. So maybe I just need to, in the z-axis, minus by 1? That doesn't make sense though. Because it's off in every single direction by that 1 value. So if we now face the south and we place another tile, I can show what I'm talking about. It's off by that direction. So where the north would be minus 5x or 0.5x to fix, the south is plus 0.5x to fix. Actually, it's actually almost an entire 1 block. So if I was doing this with code, I could fix it really quickly. With JSON, I would have to manually do it. But with this, we just want to check to make sure the tabs work. And if I click buttons, yeah, they enable and disable. Enable, disable auto crafting. I'll check saving later to make sure it works. And then the final thing is I want to make sure that I can craft a warhead. So I'm going to grab a trigger, or just grab a small warhead, and then we'll grab magical charges. Those don't actually work as crafting material. That'll work. It auto-crafted for me. Yeah, if you enable auto-crafting, it'll just chain craft. Will it let me craft with, put the trigger in there? I don't think trigger crafting is actually implemented yet. Either way, it works, so that's the end of the video. I'll be back here later with some more.